Welcome to this explainer. If you've ever felt like you just kind of don't have that right personality to be successful at selling or persuading or honestly just getting your ideas across, well, I've got a really comforting promise for you today. You do not need to change your personality to succeed. In fact, trying to be someone you aren't is exactly what's holding you back.
Okay, let's dive into this. What if everything you've been taught about selling is completely wrong? Think about the agonizing stereotypes of sales, the pressure, the stress, that constant awkward conflict between a buyer and a seller. Most of us absolutely dread the idea of selling because we think it means forcing someone to do something they really don't want to do. Today, we're going to completely discard that exhausting mindset.
To do that, we're looking at our source material for today, Harry Browne's fascinating book, The Secret of Selling Anything. I just love the bold promise on the cover of this manuscript. It's a roadmap to success specifically for the salesman who is not aggressive, who is not a smooth talker, and who is definitely not an extrovert. In fact, if you're an introvert, you actually have a distinct advantage here, and we're going to see exactly why.
First, let's take these exhausting, traditional requirements of a quote-unquote born salesman and mentally cross every single one of them out. You don't need to be aggressive. You don't need to be a glib talker. You do not need to be manipulative, possess nerves of steel, or be tirelessly hounding people. Actually, scratch that. Not only are these traits unnecessary, but Browne argues they're actually massive hindrances to making a sale. What a relief, right?
And this brilliantly illustrates the core shift we need to make today. The old stereotype is all about forcing a purchase through willpower and manipulation. It's like a battle. But the reality, the true secret to selling is simply facilitating a mutually profitable exchange based on basic human nature. Selling is literally just helping people get what they already want. But to understand how that works, we have to understand people.
Section 1. The Psychology of Profit, the Human Marketplace.
Before we even touch on sales tactics, we need to define the real underlying reasons why human beings do absolutely anything. It all starts with happiness. Now, happiness is simply the mental feeling of well-being. Every single individual on Earth is seeking happiness, but here's the absolutely critical part. Because everyone has a different life, a totally different background, and different values, happiness is entirely relative. What brings you a feeling of well-being might sound like actual torture to someone else.
Which brings us to the definition of profit. Now, when we say profit, our brains usually jump straight to dollars and cents, right? But in human psychology, profit is simply the increase in happiness by replacing one situation with another. Think about it. When a person buys a car for $3,000, they value the car more than the money. The salesman values the money more than the car. Both sides experience an increase in overall happiness. Therefore, every voluntary exchange has at least two profits.
But here is the catch, and it's a big one. Resources are limited. Our time, our energy, our property, it's all finite. Because we literally can't have everything, we must constantly choose our actions to get the most well-being out of our limited resources. Every time your prospect spends money or time on you, they are actively giving up the opportunity to spend it on something else.
Section 2. The Universal Fallacy. The Fatal Mistake.
Understanding this constant balancing act of finite resources leads us directly to the biggest mistake people make when trying to influence others. The universal fallacy is the belief that an individual would willingly accept something unprofitable to himself. Let that sink in for a second. People never give up their resources for something they value less than what they already have. No way. They don't buy from you just to be nice. They don't agree to your proposal just because you spoke eloquently. If the exchange doesn't increase their personal relative happiness, they simply will not do it.
Section 3. The Ultimate Secret of Success. How to win.
So if people only do what increases their own happiness, how do we make the sale? How do we get the job or win the pitch? So the crucial point is captured beautifully in this golden rule. Find out what people want and help them get it. That's it. That is the secret, the whole shebang. Your success depends solely on your ability to satisfy the desires of others. The more efficient you are at finding out what someone considers to be a profit in their own life and then delivering that to them, the more successful you're going to be.
And this completely exposes the myth of trying to motivate people. Trying to motivate a prospect means forcing your own values onto them. It takes forever, and honestly, it rarely ever works. Finding the motivation means discovering the goals the prospect already possesses. Listen, an individual is already a live bundle of motivations, right? Hopes, dreams, fears, and problems. Your job is not to give them some shiny new motivation. Your job is merely to uncover what they already want.
Section 4.
3 steps to easy sales.
So we've got the philosophy down. People act to increase their own relative happiness. Let's move to and see how this builds into a foolproof, logical flow for literally any interaction. We're shifting to strict, actionable tactics now. Step 1, discover the motivation. Step 2, summarize the motivation. Step 3, present the product. Notice that presenting your product is dead last. Most salespeople walk in the door and start right at step 3. That is a total recipe for failure because it relies entirely on blind luck.
Step 1. Discover, ask, and listen.
This first step is all about the absolute necessity of finding out what the prospect would actually be willing to buy before you ever breathe a single word about your product. Let me share a fantastic anecdote from the source material. Browne was this completely inexperienced advertising salesman, and he was sent to sell ad space to a chrome plating manufacturer. Now, he knew absolutely nothing about chrome plating. But instead of bluffing, he just sat down and asked simply, "What is the biggest sales problem facing you right now?" The prospect talked for 45 minutes. By using Socratic questioning, Browne uncovered that the buyer's true need was cracking difficult distribution territories. Because he took the time to discover that true need, he didn't just sell a tiny quarter-page ad, he sold 3 full pages.
Step 2. Summarize. Define the goal.
Okay, once your prospect has poured out their problems, their desires, and their goals, you must digest all those disorganized thoughts into a clear, agreed-upon goal. This step proves you were actually listening. You can use a framework exactly like this. If we can just find a way to accomplish X, then you'd be in a position to do Y. Isn't that the crux of it? When you summarize their motivation like this, you do 3 huge things. First, you earn their deep trust. Second, you clearly define the problem. And third, most importantly, you set the specific qualifications required to make the sale. If they say yes to your summary, they are literally telling you exactly what it will take for them to hand over their money.
Step 3. Present. Bring the product. Only once you fully understand their motivations and they've enthusiastically agreed with your summary do you finally introduce your product. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the incredible discipline this final phase requires. You must only talk about the features your prospect indicated are important to them. Forget the rest. If they told you safety is their primary concern when buying a car, do not waste their time talking about the horsepower or the premium sound system. It just doesn't matter to them. You play back their own comments and show them exactly how your product satisfies their specific, relative vision of happiness.
So we've completely dismantled the idea that selling requires some aggressive, extroverted personality. Selling is simply the art of uncovering what someone wants and helping them get it. But as we wrap up this explainer, I want to turn the mirror onto you. What is your motivation? What is your relative vision of happiness? And exactly how are you spending your finite resources to achieve it? Once you know that, the entire world opens up. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I hope this paradigm shift helps you get exactly what you want out of life.